Okay, so this is chapter 4.8, complex numbers. We're going to be talking about complex and imaginary numbers. This form here is the correct way to write a complex number. So this is the real number, and then it's either plus or minus the imaginary number. The I represents the imaginary number. I is the square root of -1. And if I'm squaring that, square root and squared cancel out, so I squared is equal to -1. So we're going to do some replacing with I squared and make that -1. These are the steps. You can find those on the attachment on Edmodo. So the first thing we have to do is simplify the square root of -36. So first of all, I need to take out an I to get rid of the negative sign. And then you need to use your yellow sheet or pull up a squares list on Google, something like that. So the square root of 36 would be 6. And then we've got the I attached to it. And whenever you take the square root of something, it's always plus or minus. So you write that out front. So the answer to the square root of -36 is plus or minus 6I. Okay, this next one is the square root of -18. First thing you do is take out the I so that we're breaking down a positive square root. There's no perfect square that goes into 18, so you need to break it down into square root of 9, square root of 2. The square root of 9 becomes 3. This doesn't reduce anymore, so my final answer would be plus or minus 3I square root of 2. Okay, now we're going to do some adding and subtracting of complex numbers. These are the steps. You can find those on Edmodo. So first off here, I've got a plus sign, so I would just distribute a +1, which doesn't change anything. So I'm just going to start combining like terms from here. So 9 plus 23 would be 32. And then 7I plus -21I would be -14I. And I just have to make sure that my real number is first and then followed by my imaginary number. So this would be in the correct form. Okay, a subtracting example, I've got a negative sign outside of parentheses, so I need to distribute that. This first set is going to stay the same, -12 plus 13I. And now we combine like terms. 6 minus 12 is -6. 9I plus 13I is 22I. Real number, imaginary number, so it's in the right format. Okay, I've got an imaginary number outside of parentheses, so I need to distribute. This is 12I minus 21I squared. I times I is I squared. And then we talked about at the beginning that I squared is equal to -1, so we need to plug that in. So I'm replacing I squared with -1. And then I can simplify this. -21 times -1 is +21. And then these two need to switch spots so it's in the correct order. So 21 plus 12I. Okay, now we're going to actually be solving for x. So I've got x squared plus 36 equals 0. I need to solve this for x, so I've got to move the 36 over to the other side. The opposite of squaring would be square rooting, so I need to square root both sides. X equals the square root of -36. Now I need to simplify, so I take out an I, and then simplify the square root of 36 would be 6, plus or minus 6I. Okay, do the same thing on this one. Move everything away from x squared, so subtract 48. 3x squared equals -48. Divide by 3. X squared equals 48 divided by 3. -16. Square root both sides. X equals, take out the I. Simplify the square root of 16, so that would be plus or minus 4I. Okay, then this one I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. 2x squared equals 28. Divide by 2. x squared equals 14. Square root both sides. X equals square root of 14. There's no I here, there's no negative sign, so I'm just going to put a plus or minus out front. We can't simplify this, take any perfect squares out, so plus or minus square root of 14 would be my final answer.